Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive with us. This time, are going way back to ancient India. We're going to be looking at a hymn from the Rig Veda, which is, as you probably know, a collection of super old hymns. And we're looking specifically at hymn 7 from Book 2, in the Ralph T. Griffith translation. Now, you might think, okay, ancient hymns, sounds kind of dry.
Yeah.
But trust me on this one. This one's got some really juicy parts to it and gives us this really cool glimpse into what people desired and the anxieties they had thousands of years ago. And you'd be surprised how much they sound like us today. Talking about winning, wanting wealth, worrying about what their neighbors think.
Yeah, it's amazing how these hymns, composed so long ago, still speak to such fundamental human experiences. It's like a window into their hopes and fears, a civilization so far removed from our own, but still so relatable.
All right, so let's jump right into it. The hymn kicks off with, I think, a pretty powerful request, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. The opening verses are striking. They're very direct, invoking this trio of deities, Vasu, Karata, and Agni. And they're very clear about what they want. They say, bring us wealth, excellent, splendid, much desired.
Yeah, they're laying it all out there right from the start. But here's what I find interesting. Right after asking for all this wealth, they add, let no malignity prevail against us, either gods or man's. Save us from this and enmity. It's almost like they're saying, give us all the good stuff, but please, no drama.
Yeah, that juxtaposition is really fascinating. It suggests that they were aware that achieving wealth could have a shadow side. Maybe they were afraid of attracting envy or even retribution from the gods. It's this idea that good things can come with downsides. That still resonates with us today. Think about it. The pursuit of fame or power. It often comes with a price.
For sure. It's like wanting that promotion,
Right.
but dreading all the extra responsibility or winning the lottery. And suddenly,
Yeah.
all your distant relatives are knocking at your door. I think the people of the Rig Veda really grasped that duality, that potential for both good and bad consequences.
Yeah. And that understanding of balance is evident throughout the Rig Veda. They acknowledge the power of the gods. But they also recognized the importance of human action. This interplay between divine favor and human effort is a key theme that we'll keep seeing as we go through this hymn.
Okay, so let's look at verse 3, where things get a little more intense. They talk about overcoming obstacles. And they use some really strong imagery. They say, so through thy favor may we force through all our enemies away, as twere through streaming water floods. It's like they're picturing themselves as this unstoppable force, just washing away everything in its path.
That's powerful imagery, and it makes you wonder, who were these enemies they were talking about? Were they actual enemies, like rival tribes or invaders? Or could it be a more symbolic battle, representing just the challenges of life?
That's a really good question. And, you know, thinking back to those first verses, where they're asking for wealth and protection, it makes me think that this force they're calling on is maybe connected to acquiring or protecting that wealth. Maybe they saw wealth, not just as possessions, but as a way to overcome those challenges and really secure their place in the world.
That's a great connection. Maybe their desire for wealth wasn't just driven by greed, but by a need for security, for stability, a way to deal with the uncertainty of their time, after all. Wealth could give them the resources and the influence to overcome those enemies, whether they were literal or metaphorical.
So it's less about give us wealth so we can have fancy chariots, and more about give us wealth so we can thrive and face whatever comes our way.
Exactly. And this brings us to a key figure in Vedic belief, Agni, the god of fire. Verse 4 describes him beautifully. It says, thou, purifier Agni, high shinest forth, bright, adorable, when worshipped with sacred oil. And here we see the tone shift a bit, from that assertive energy of the previous verses to a more reverent and descriptive language.
Yeah, in the sensory details are so vivid. I can almost picture the scene, the flickering flames, the fragrant oil, that sense of awe.
It really speaks to how central fire was to their rituals and beliefs. Agni wasn't just about warmth and light. He was a mediator between humans and the divine, carrying offerings to the gods, purifying the sacrificial space. So when they call upon Agni, it's not just asking for practical help. Fire represents transformation and purification. They're searching for a deeper spiritual connection.
Yeah, it's like fire was this symbol of both the physical and spiritual. It could destroy and create. And it seems like they recognized that duality. They wanted to use it.
Yeah.
But then things get a little strange in verse 5. They say, ours art thou, Agni Vadata, honored by us with barren cows, with bullocks, and with kine and calf. Wait a minute. Barren cows. That's kind of a weird offering, isn't it?
It's definitely intriguing. Some scholars think that something might have been lost in translation. Because the idea of offering a barren cow Seems counterintuitive in a society that valued livestock so much.
Yeah, you're not going to bring your worst cow to the party. So maybe it wasn't meant literally. Maybe it was symbolic of something else.
That's definitely a possibility. It's also important to remember that different types of cattle probably had different symbolic meanings, like billocks, for example. They were essential for plowing. They represented strength and fertility.
So this seemingly simple line about barren cows
Mm.
raises all kinds of questions about their agricultural practices, the symbolism of their livestock, even the nuances of ancient languages.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even the smallest details in these ancient texts can have layers of meaning.
Absolutely.
And speaking of details, we can't overlook all the titles that they give to Agni in verse 6. They call him wood-fed, bedewed with sacred oil, ancient invoker, excellent, the son of strength, the wonderful.
It's like they're piling on the praise.
They really wanted to make sure he knew how important he was. I wonder why they used so many titles. Was it a way to try to capture the full essence of this powerful and complex deity? That's a good question. Maybe it reflects their awe at the natural world. Fire would have been both fascinating and fearsome. And giving Agni these grand titles might have been a way to express their reverence and to seek his favor.
So it wasn't just about asking for things. It was about acknowledging the power and the mystery of the natural world and finding ways to connect with it.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground already, from wanting wealth to overcoming enemies to ancient rituals and fire. It's really amazing how these ancient verses can still spark our curiosity and offer glimpses into the human experience. It's like a conversation across millennia,
It really is remarkable how much we can learn from just a few verses.
like a time capsule,
Yeah,
full of insights into their beliefs, their values,
Yeah.
even their anxieties.
exactly.
We're just scratching the surface, though, of this fascinating hymn. We'll be back in a bit. To keep exploring these verses and uncover even more layers of meaning.
Okay, sounds good. You know, it's amazing to think that these hymns weren't just about asking for things from the gods. They were a way to explore really big philosophical questions about the nature of reality, the meaning of life, the whole human condition.
So it wasn't just like, hey, Agni, can you get me a chariot? They were actually thinking about their place in the cosmos.
Exactly. And they use all these metaphors and symbolism
Yeah.
to express these complex ideas, like the image of fire, which keeps coming up in this hymn. You can see it as a symbol of transformation, purification, even divine knowledge.
Right. Fire represents both the physical and spiritual.
Yeah.
This powerful force
Yeah.
that can destroy and create. It makes you wonder if they saw that duality as like a reflection of life itself, that constant back and forth
Yeah.
between creation and destruction, growth and decay.
That's a great point. And that duality is a big theme in the Rig Veda. Even the gods themselves often embody both good and bad aspects. It's like they're reflecting the complexity of life and the universe itself.
So they didn't have a simple black and white view.
No.
It was more nuanced,
Yeah.
more like how we understand things today.
Absolutely. And as we keep looking at this hymn, it's important to remember that we're really just scratching the surface here. There are so many layers of meaning.
Yeah.
Even scholars who have studied the Rig Veda their whole lives, they still debate how to interpret it.
Right.
Well-
It's like we're putting together a puzzle with all of these pieces scattered across time,
Yeah.
and each new insight just makes it more interesting.
Exactly. And sometimes it's the missing pieces that make it even more fascinating. It makes us curious. It challenges us to think critically, to consider different points of view. Speaking of perspectives, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier, that idea that they were asking for wealth and protection from envy. What's interesting is that desire for protection, it wasn't just about outside threats. They were also worried about internal conflicts. That could come from having wealth.
You mean like the temptation
Yeah.
to become greedy
Okay.
or to misuse their power?
Exactly.
So it's like they were trying to protect their power.
Exactly.
So it's like they were trying to protect themselves, not just from others,
Yeah.
but from their own potential to do wrong.
That's a really insightful point. The hymn seems to suggest that they knew that wealth and power could corrupt. They might have been looking for some kind of spiritual guidance, a way to make sure that their pursuit of wealth didn't lead them away from their values.
It's like they were saying, okay, God's help us achieve our goals, but help us stay true to ourselves.
Right?
It's a struggle that's still relevant today. Finding that balance between ambition and integrity, material success and spiritual well-being.
Absolutely. It's a timeless problem. That challenges individuals and societies. It really makes you wonder what the people of the Rig Veda would think about our world today. with our focus on consumerism and status and always chasing more wealth.
That's a really interesting thought. Imagine showing them our skyscrapers and smartphones and social media. Would they be impressed by our technology, or would they see it as like a symptom of the anxieties that they were dealing with thousands of years ago?
It's hard to say. Maybe they would see the downsides of material progress, how ambition can lead to social and environmental problems. But maybe they would also recognize the human ingenuity, the creativity that led to all these advancements.
It's like they'd be saying, look at all you've achieved, but don't forget what really matters.
Yeah. And that brings us back to the core message of this hymn, that importance of balance, balance between material and spiritual, between ambition and ethics, between wanting success and being aware of the possible downsides.
So it's not just about getting what we want. It's about thinking about the consequences and staying true to our values.
Exactly.
This hymn really reminds us that even though our challenges are different, that basic human search for meaning and security and balance, it goes beyond time and culture.
It really does. And as we keep looking at the Rig Veda, we'll see that theme of balance come up again and again. It reminds us that even though we're separated by so much time and culture, we share a common human experience with the people who wrote these hymns. But we have to remember, we've only explored a small part of this amazing text. There are so many other hymns and verses and interpretations just waiting to be discovered.
It's like opening a door to a huge library full of ancient wisdom and timeless insights, and with each step we take, we find something new and exciting.
Exactly. And the best part is, every time you go back to these texts, you're going to find new insights, new layers of meaning, new connections to your own life.
So it's not just about learning about the past, it's about using that knowledge to understand the present and to ask new questions about ourselves
Yeah.
and the world around us. But before we get too lost in all that, let's bring it back to hymn 7 and see what other gems we can find. We've been spending quite a bit of time now with this hymn from the Rig Veda, and I gotta say, I'm really struck by how much it tells us about the people who wrote it. You know, it's not just like a wish list or a bunch of demands. It's more like a window into how they saw the world, their whole understanding of the divine, and where they fit in.
Yeah. And you know what really stands out to me is the way they talk to the gods. It's this mix of reverence and also familiarity.
Yeah.
They definitely acknowledge how powerful the deities are, but at the same time, they seem comfortable having this sort of dialogue with them, expressing not just their requests, but their worries and their hopes too.
So it's not just a one-way street of humans begging for favors.
Right, exactly.
There's this sense of a relationship, even a partnership in a way.
Take, for example, how they invoke Agni, the fire god. They ask for his help in overcoming obstacles and getting wealth, but they also praise him a lot. They use all these elaborate titles and vivid descriptions. It's like they're trying to connect with him on a deeper level, not just boss him around.
That makes me think about how important fire was in their lives.
Yeah.
It was essential for warmth-like cooking,
Yeah.
but also for rituals and sacrifices. So Agni wasn't just some distant abstract deity. He was a real and powerful presence in their everyday lives.
Absolutely. And that connection to the natural world is something you see throughout the Rig Veda, fire, water, wine, the sky. These forces weren't just background noise. They were filled with divine meaning.
It's like they saw the divine reflected in everything around them, not just in some far-off heaven.
Yeah.
And that makes their request even more interesting. They're not just asking for stuff. They're trying to align themselves with these powerful forces that shape their world.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the idea of balance that we've been talking about. The people of the Rig Veda understood that humans weren't just puppets controlled by the gods. They had to play their part, make choices, take action.
So it's not just, please gods make us rich. It's more like, we're going to work hard, we're going to face our challenges, but we need your help along the way.
That's a perfect way to put it. They recognized the power of the divine, but they also took responsibility for their own lives.
Right, and that interplay, that dynamic between what humans do and the grace of the gods, it's a constant theme throughout the Rig Veda.
It reminds us that even though their world was so different from ours, they still struggled with the same big questions we face today. How to live a good life, how to deal with difficulties, how to balance our ambitions with doing the right thing.
It's amazing to think that these texts, written thousands of years ago, can still speak to us in such a powerful way.
Yeah, it's like looking into a mirror across time and seeing our own hopes and fears reflected back at us.
It's been an incredible journey, exploring just this one hymn from the Rig Veda. We've uncovered so much meaning, delved into ancient beliefs, and even found connections to our own lives today. But we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to discover.
Absolutely. The Rig Veda is a vast and complex tradition that's still inspiring and challenging us today. It's a testament to human curiosity and the search for meaning that these texts can still resonate with us thousands of years later.
So to everyone listening, if you're feeling inspired to dive deeper into the Rig Veda, I encourage you to pick up a translation and start exploring. You might be surprised by what you find and the connections you make. Who knows? You might even awaken some ancient desires within yourself.
And as you start exploring these ancient texts, remember to keep an open mind. Be curious and be willing to question your own assumptions. The Rig Veda is a treasure trove of wisdom just waiting to be discovered.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the Rig Veda. We hope you've enjoyed this journey back in time and that it sparked a curiosity to learn more about this fascinating and enduring text. Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep those intellectual fires burning.